is the priciest steak you can buy. But if your local restaurant is offering Kobe beef, there's a good chance that that is not what they're selling.
Let me give you a number. In 2024, hospitalizations from contaminated food more than doubled. Deaths doubled too. But here's the part that should really worry you. If you or someone you love is over 65, you're not just more likely to get food poisoning, you're more likely to end up in a hospital bed because of it. The CDC says nearly half of older adults who catch salmonella or E. coli from a restaurant need to be hospitalized. Not feel a little queasy, hospitalized. And bad steak is one of the most common culprits. It remains one of the most popular things you order when you eat out, steakhouse or not. And some of America's most popular chains, they're failing health inspections. Serving beef so cheap it's set up to fail before it ever touches the grill. With the industry bleeding money, many restaurants are cutting corners. And you're the one who pays for it. Sometimes with your wallet, sometimes with your health. I spent weeks going through the data, the inspection reports, the lawsuits, the insider admissions. Here's the good news. Not every chain is a disaster. Some are doing it right. Great beef, skilled cooks, kitchens you'd actually feel comfortable walking into. Tonight, I'm giving you the cheat sheet. 7 restaurants to cross off your list, and 7 where you can walk in, order a steak, and know it's going to be worth every penny. Let's start with a chain that built its empire on hand-cut steaks and fresh-baked rolls, and then became something else entirely. The 7 worst chain restaurants for steak. Worst number 1, Texas Roadhouse. The betrayal. If you've ever celebrated a birthday at Texas Roadhouse, you're not alone. For 30 years, this chain sold America a simple promise. Honest steaks, hand-cut right in front of you, served with those famous honey butter rolls. It worked. Texas Roadhouse became the go-to for working families who wanted a real steakhouse experience without a country club price tag. You could watch the butcher through the glass. You knew exactly what you were getting. Or so you thought. Let me show you something that went viral last year. A woman ordered a family meal from Texas Roadhouse for her nephew. When she cut into her sirloin, it didn't slice. It collapsed. The whole steak fell apart like wet sand. She posted the video, her exact words. The inside of the steak just turns to mush. The texture was like mashed potatoes or pate. She said it smelled funky. Texas Roadhouse responded. They admitted the steaks were over-tenderized. Their process went too far. Then the steaks sat in sealed to-go containers, which trapped steam and kept cooking the meat into paste. But here's what they didn't explain. Why is their process so aggressive that it can turn a steak into baby food? Texas Roadhouse built their entire brand on transparency. You can see the butcher, you can watch them cut your steak, it feels honest. But what you can't see is what happens before the grill. The marinades, the mechanical tenderizing, the shortcuts that turn a decent cut of beef into something your dentures wouldn't even struggle with. Because there's nothing left to chew. The visible butcher is the magic trick. The tenderizing room is where the real action happens. And the problems go deeper than texture. In February 2025, a Texas Roadhouse in Henrietta, New York, was shut down by the health department. Inspectors found mice. They found roaches. And here's the part that made me put down my coffee. They found roaches in the sauce sitting on top of the cooking line. Not near it. In it. That's not a seasoning. That's a health code felony. Peanut bags had been chewed open by rodent teeth. The famous floor peanuts had some competition, apparently. Multiple Colorado locations have also failed inspections. One in Colorado Springs failed twice, in May 2024 and again in 2025. Another racked up 10 violations in a single visit in June 2025. Texas Roadhouse is owned by a company that generated over $5 billion in revenue last year. They have the resources to keep kitchens clean. Instead, inspectors are finding roaches in the sauce. At 65 and older, a bad bout of food poisoning isn't just a bad night. It can mean days in the hospital. At those ages, your immune system doesn't bounce back like it did at 30. I used to recommend Texas Roadhouse. Good value, I'd say. Decent steak for the price. After those health reports, after that viral video, I can't say that anymore. If you absolutely have to eat there, maybe your grandkids picked the restaurant. Here's how to protect yourself. Order the thickest cut they have. Ribeye, not sirloin. A thicker steak hides the over-tenderizing better. Eat in the restaurant. Don't do takeout. Those sealed containers trap steam and keep cooking your meat into mush. And if something seems off, the texture, the smell, anything, send it back immediately. Take a photo first. Texas Roadhouse isn't the only suburban steakhouse that's fallen from grace. There's another chain millions of Americans grew up with. A place that was supposed to bring a taste of the Australian Outback to Main Street. Except the only thing wild about it now is what's happening in the kitchen. Worst number 2, Outback Steakhouse, the fallen giant. Let me take you back to 1988. 4 guys in Tampa had an idea. America was obsessed with Crocodile Dundee, so they opened a steakhouse with an Aussie theme, even though none of them had ever been to Australia. They called it Outback Steakhouse, and for a while it was magic. That bloomin' onion became iconic. The fun atmosphere brought families in. At its peak, Outback had hundreds of locations around the world. It was the place for birthdays, anniversaries, graduations. Maybe you took your kids there, maybe your parents took you. Here's what they don't put on the commercials anymore. Outback's parent company, Bloomin' Brands, annual revenue around $4 billion, quietly closed 41 locations in 2024, then shuttered at least 8 more in late 2025. 2 straight years without positive sales growth. The chain that defined suburban steakhouse dining is now closing restaurants like a department store after Christmas. What happened? The steak isn't good enough anymore. And America noticed. A national poll asked Americans which steakhouse chain serves the worst steak. Outback won, if you can call it winning. More people voted for Outback than any other chain. The reviews tell the same story. Tough, gristly, had to chew through fat. Former fans are posting online that they just don't trust Outback steaks anymore. One commenter summed it up. Outback is where steaks go to be punished for crimes they didn't commit. Here's something Outback doesn't advertise. Their steaks are USDA choice, the same grade you can buy at Costco or your local grocery store for a fraction of the price. Choice isn't bad for a home cookout, but here's the problem. You're not paying home cookout prices. You're paying $30 or more per entree. For grocery store beef, that's like paying valet prices and finding your car in the regular lot. Meanwhile, places like Ruth's Chris use USDA Prime. That's a massive difference. Prime has rich marbling, the white lines of fat that make a steak tender and juicy. Choice has less, leaner, tougher, less flavor. Outback is betting you won't know the difference. Now you do. If someone drags you to Outback, here's your survival guide. Skip the sirloin. That's the most price-engineered cut on the menu. Order the bone-in ribeye, cooked medium. The fat content helps mask inconsistency. And if your steak is tough, send it back. You're paying too much to sit there chewing like you're working on a piece of leather. At least Outback serves you at a table with real plates. Our next offender doesn't bother with any of that. They pile steaks under heat lamps and dare you to eat as much as you can. What could possibly go wrong? Turns out, everything. Worst number 3, Golden Corral. All you can eat. Regret. Golden Corral sounds like a carnivore's dream. All the steak you can eat. One price. Load up your plate, go back for seconds, thirds, fourths. Nobody's counting. For 50 years, this chain has been the go-to for family gatherings, church groups, and seniors looking for value. The endless buffet felt like abundance, like America itself. But here's what abundance looks like behind the scenes. In October 2024, a Golden Corral in Ohio failed its health inspection. Critical violations. The dish sanitizer wasn't working. Ice dispensers were filthy. Pest control procedures were so lax that inspectors flagged the risk of contamination across the entire operation. This wasn't a one-time slip. Buffets are notoriously hard to keep safe. When you're cooking hundreds of steaks a day and holding them under heat lamps, the line between dinner and petri dish gets real thin. Here's something Golden Corral would rather you forget. One of their locations was linked to a salmonella outbreak so severe that investigators found the bacteria living in the kitchen floor drains, not on a countertop, in the drains. The bacteria had moved in permanently. People got violently ill. Some ended up in the hospital. One person died. Food safety attorneys still use that outbreak as a textbook example of how bad a buffet can get. And the structural problems with the buffet model haven't changed. My wife's aunt is 72 years old. For years, her Sunday routine was the same. Church, then lunch at her favorite buffet steakhouse. She loved the value. Where else can I eat this much for 15 bucks? Then one Sunday, she got sick. Really sick. 3 days of stomach cramps. Fever. Couldn't keep anything down. At 72, that's not just uncomfortable. That's a phone call your family doesn't want to get. For a 30-year-old, food poisoning is a ruined weekend. For a 70-year-old, it can be a hospital bed. If you end up at Golden Corral, here's how to protect yourself. Only eat steak that comes directly off the grill station, cooked to order right in front of you. Eat it immediately and don't let it sit while you chat. Avoid anything that's been sitting in pans under heat lamps. And if the buffet looks picked over or the staff looks overwhelmed, order a salad and call it a day. Golden Corral is honest about what it is. It's a buffet. You know what you're getting into. Our next restaurant is something sadder. A once great American institution that's become a ghost of itself. And the ghost isn't even haunting a full restaurant anymore, just the 80 locations that survived. Worst number 4, Sizzler, a sad echo of the past. If you're old enough to remember Sizzler, you probably remember it fondly. The counter where you ordered, the tray you carried to your table, the salad bar that felt endless, and the steak and baked potato that anchored every family dinner. In the 1970s and 80s, Sizzler was everywhere, over 700 locations. It was the budget steakhouse for working families, from over 700 to roughly 70. That's not a decline, that's an extinction event. Multiple bankruptcies. The 1990s hit them hard. COVID hit them harder, and they filed for bankruptcy again in 2020. The restaurants that survived? They feel like time capsules. Dated interiors, dwindling crowds. Reviews that use words like mediocre and forgettable. One Yelp reviewer nailed it. Back in the 90s, Sizzler was great. Now save your money. Sizzler is attempting a comeback. Remodeled locations see sales jump almost 50%. Sounds impressive until you remember they're working with fewer than 80 restaurants in a country of 340 million people. That's not a phoenix rising. That's a candle flickering in a hurricane. They're betting on your memories being stronger than your taste buds. And for a lot of you, those memories are 30 years old. If nostalgia pulls you into a Sizzler, keep expectations low. Stick to the basics. Steak and baked potato. Avoid the all-you-can-eat specials. That's where the lowest quality cuts end up, sitting under heat lamps until someone rescues them out of pity. Sizzler at least acknowledges what it is. A budget option. A memory from another era. But what about chains that charge steakhouse prices while serving microwave-quality meat? Where the steak looks like it was cooked as a punishment. That's where Applebee's comes in. Worst number 5. Applebee's, where steaks go to die. Applebee's is everywhere. Every suburb, every small town, every highway exit with a hotel. It's the default, let's just go somewhere restaurant. And somewhere along the way, they decided to sell steak. Big mistake. In 2016, Applebee's launched a major campaign. Wood-fired grills, hand-cut steaks. They spent millions convincing America that the neighborhood grill and bar was now a steakhouse. Customers showed up and immediately started posting photos of what they got. One image went viral. A pale gray slab of meat that looked like it had been found, not cooked. Reddit had a field day. Someone described Applebee's cooking process as lay a lukewarm tennis racket across a rectangular hamburger patty and stick it all in the microwave. That's not a restaurant review, that's a crime scene description. Here's what no marketing campaign can fix. Applebee's uses USDA select beef. That's the lowest grade sold at retail. One step above commodity meat, the bottom of the barrel wearing a tie. Select is lean, tough, flavorless. It doesn't have the marbling that makes the steak tender and juicy. You can't grill your way out of select beef. You can't season your way out of it. You can't market your way out of it. The steak is set up for failure before it ever touches the grill. Dine Brands, Applebee's parent company, generates over $8 billion in system-wide sales annually. They could source better beef. They chose the cheapest grade on the market and wrapped it in a wood-fired grill campaign. That's not a steakhouse, that's a magic trick. And a bad one. Have you ever ordered steak at Applebee's and immediately regretted it? Drop the location in the comments. I have a feeling the stories are going to be something. Don't order steak at Applebee's. Order the appetizers, order the bar food, order whatever they're actually good at. If someone holds a gun to your head and demands you order steak, get the highest priced cut with extra toppings and pray. Applebee's is cheap. You know the deal walking in. But what about a chain that charges real money for steaks they can't seem to cook correctly? A chain whose own president admitted they've lost millions on bad beef. That's Chili's. And the solution they came up with will blow your mind. Worst number 6. Chili's. Millions lost on overcooked meat. Chili's has been around since 1975. Baby back ribs, Tex-Mex, margaritas the size of your head. For 50 years, they've been a solid choice for a burger, some fajitas, or a decent happy hour. But steak? That's where things fall apart. On paper, Chili's sounds promising. The menu advertises 100% USDA ribeye and choice sirloin. In practice, it's a coin flip. Reviews from Georgia to California tell the same story. You order medium rare, you get well done. Next visit, you order medium rare. You get practically raw. The inconsistency isn't just bad, it's legendary. But here's the part that made my jaw drop. In early 2023, Chili's own president admitted, out loud in public, that the chain had been losing $5.6 million every year because of botched steaks. $5.6 million. Not a rumor. Their own leadership said it. That's not a kitchen problem. That's a confession. Chili's is owned by Brinker International. Over $4 billion in revenue, thousands of locations, and they can't figure out medium rare. So what's their solution? Better training? Better beef? Hire people who've actually cooked a steak before? Nope. A robot. Chili's is testing high-tech grills that promise a perfect medium in 3 minutes. They're replacing cooks with machines because they've given up on humans getting it right. If Chili's doesn't believe their own kitchens can cook a steak, why should you? If you are at Chili's, order the ribs. That's what they're known for. If you must have beef, order a burger. Harder to botch than a steak. And if you absolutely insist on steak, ribeye, medium, and say a prayer. Be ready to send it back. See the pattern forming here? Chain after chain, same story. Cheap beef, undertrained cooks, corners cut everywhere you can't see. You're the one sitting at the table hoping tonight's not the night your dinner fights back. But there's an entire category of restaurants that have no business selling steak at all. And they do it anyway. Worst number 7, Olive Garden and non-steak chains. The false promise. Here's a rule that will never fail you. If a restaurant is famous for pasta, don't order steak. If they're known for pancakes, skip the sirloin. If their specialty is tacos, stay away from the ribeye. Olive Garden built a billion-dollar empire on breadsticks and endless salad. Darden Restaurants, the parent company, generates over $11 billion in annual revenue. They own Longhorn. They own the Capitol Grill. They know what a good steak program looks like. They chose not to build one at Olive Garden. So why did they add steak to the menu? Because some marketing executive calculated that steak on the menu captures customers who want something different. Not because anyone in that kitchen specializes in cooking one. The result? Staff privately admit the steak arrives pre-cut and frozen. Customers describe it as tough, gristly, and like chewing a boot. One reviewer wrote that their Olive Garden steak looked like a piece of beef that had already given up on life before it reached the plate. Just because something is on the menu doesn't mean anyone in that kitchen knows how to make it. Steak takes skill. It takes the right equipment. It takes cooks who prepare hundreds of steaks a day and know what medium rare looks like by touch. Olive Garden's cooks specialize in pasta. IHOP's cooks specialize in breakfast. When you order steak at these places, you're asking a librarian to perform open-heart surgery. They're smart people, it's just not their job. Don't order steak at Italian restaurants. Don't order steak at breakfast chains. Don't order steak at Tex-Mex joints. Order what they're actually good at. Save your steak craving for a place that takes steak seriously. If you've been counting along, drop a 7 in the comments. I want to know you made it through. And if this video is helping you think differently about where you order steak, if you want more content that cuts through the marketing and tells you what's actually happening behind the kitchen doors, subscribe right now. No sponsorships from the restaurants we cover, no fluff. Just information you can use the next time you sit down and open a menu. Because what's coming next is the good news, and you're going to want to see it. I've been harsh. I've shown you the dark side of American chain dining. 7 restaurants that charge steakhouse prices while cutting every corner they think you won't notice. Cheap beef, undertrained kitchens, health violations that would make you lose your appetite permanently. But here's the thing. Not every chain has given up. Some still care. Places where quality isn't just a word on a poster. Places where the steak is still sacred. Let's flip the script. Best number 1, Longhorn Steakhouse, the working family's champion. If the last 7 entries made you want to give up on chain steakhouses forever, I get it. But before you swear off eating out, let me tell you about Longhorn. Longhorn was founded in Atlanta in 1981. Simple concept. Serve a great steak without charging country club prices. 4 decades later, that promise still holds. Here's a number that tells you everything. In 2023, Longhorn honored an Ohio grill cook who'd been with the company for 30 years. In that time, he'd prepared over 1 million steaks. Not a typo. 1 million. That's roughly 91 steaks a day, every day, for 3 decades. That's not a cook. That's a craftsman. Every Longhorn steak comes from never-frozen USDA choice beef. Cattle that are grass-fed, then grain-finished for optimal flavor. Wait, you might be thinking. You just criticized Outback for using choice beef. Here's the difference. Longhorn sources carefully. They train relentlessly. Every location has specially trained grill masters. Not just line cooks thrown at a grill, but specialists who've earned the title. Same grade of beef, completely different results. That's what happens when a company invests in people instead of robots. and the numbers prove it. The American Customer Satisfaction Index, the gold standard for measuring how customers feel about restaurants, ranked Longhorn tied for the #1 spot among every full-service restaurant in America in 2024. Not just steakhouses, every full-service restaurant, scoring 85 out of 100, higher than Olive Garden, higher than Chili's, higher than Outback, which dropped 4% the same year. And while many casual chains are hemorrhaging locations, closing stores, slashing menus, discounting desperately, Longhorn keeps growing. Same-store sales up over 10%, rising traffic, named one of America's favorite brands by Technomic. That's rare in this environment. My brother-in-law is picky about steak, former restaurant cook, judges everything. Last Thanksgiving, he couldn't get a reservation anywhere good. Someone suggested Longhorn. He went in skeptical, came out surprised. They actually nailed medium rare, he said. First try. That's the highest compliment he gives. When you go to Longhorn, the outlaw ribeye, or any bone-in cut, that's their showcase. Ask for medium rare. Their grill masters are trained to hit it. Go earlier in the evening when the grill is in full swing, not at closing time when the kitchen's running on fumes. Remember that feeling from the hook? Worrying whether your steak is safe, whether the kitchen is clean, whether the cook actually knows what they're doing? At Longhorn, you don't have to wonder. This is the place to bring the grandkids without worrying about the bill or your dinner. But if you are looking for something elevated, a milestone birthday, a big anniversary, there's a Chicago legend that's been doing this for almost 50 years. Best number 2, Morton's the Steakhouse, the Chicago original. Let me tell you a story about a hamburger. Back in the 1970s, two guys worked together at the Playboy Club in Montreal. Arnie Morton was running the operation. Klaus Fritsch was in the kitchen. One day, the club was changing its menu. Klaus made a hamburger for Arnie to try. Arnie burst through the kitchen doors. "Who made this?" he demanded. Klaus stepped forward, nervous. Arnie smiled. "That's the best hamburger I've ever had." They called it the $1 Million Hamburger, and it launched a partnership that would change American steakhouses forever. In 1978, Arnie and Klaus opened Morton's of Chicago in the basement of Newberry Plaza. The menu was deliberately simple: giant potatoes and large steaks. No complicated sauces, no fusion experiments. Just honest beef, cooked right. Nearly 50 years later, Morton's has over 65 locations. The founder passed away in 2005. But that philosophy, simplicity, quality, no shortcuts, hasn't changed. Morton's built its reputation on USDA prime steaks, many dry-aged, following the same standards Arnie and Klaus set in that Chicago basement. In a world where chains constantly chase trends and cut corners, Morton's stubbornness feels almost rebellious. When you go, the double porterhouse is their signature, legendary since 1978. The bone-in ribeye or NY strip lets the aging shine. Ask your server what's particularly good that night. Career servers at Morton's know the kitchen intimately. Morton's built its reputation on simplicity. Our next restaurant built theirs on spectacle. Steaks so hot they arrived literally sizzling in butter. Best number 3, Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. Consistency is king. 1965, New Orleans. A single mom named Ruth Fertel had a dream and a problem. She wanted to buy a failing steakhouse called Chris Steakhouse, but she didn't have the money, so she mortgaged her house. The restaurant took off. Then a fire destroyed it. Ruth had to move locations. But there was a catch. Her contract said she could only use the name Chris Steakhouse at the original address. So at the new location, she added her own name. Ruth's Chris Steakhouse was born from a woman who bet everything and refused to quit. Here's what Ruth figured out that most chains still haven't. People don't just want good food, they want reliable food. When you're celebrating a 50th anniversary, you don't want to gamble. You want to know with certainty that the steak will be perfect. Ruth's Chris delivers that certainty. Every time, every location. Here's how. Every steak is broiled at 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit, then served on a 500-degree plate. When it arrives at your table, it's sizzling in butter. That's not just presentation. The hot plate keeps basting the meat as you eat. Every bite is as perfect as the first. The first forkful and the last one live in the same zip code. Only USDA Prime or the absolute highest choice grades. Beef aged about 28 days to concentrate the flavor. Compare that to the chains in the first half of this video. Select beef, undertrained cooks, health inspections that read like horror novels. Ruth's Chris isn't just better, it's a different universe. When you go the ribeye or filet, the butter treatment makes these transcendent. Order medium rare. Their broilers are calibrated for precision. Save this for real celebrations, anniversaries, milestone birthdays. This is where you go and it has to be perfect. Ruth's Chris gives you theater and substance. But if you want a steakhouse that treats beef like fine wine, aged to perfection in glass cases you can actually see, you need to visit our next pick. Best number 4, the Capitol Grill. Dry-aged excellence. Most chain restaurants get their steaks shipped in from a central facility. Pre-cut, pre-portioned, ready to cook. The Capitol Grill does the opposite. Walk into certain locations and you'll see something unusual. Glass-enclosed meat lockers right in the dining area. Inside those lockers, primal cuts of beef hanging and aging for days or weeks. When your order comes in, an actual butcher carves your steak fresh. Right then, just for you. It's an old-school approach that almost nobody else bothers with because it's expensive, it's labor-intensive, and it requires real skill. 3 things most chains actively avoid. Here's what dry aging does. As beef ages, moisture evaporates, enzymes break down the muscle fibers. What's left is more concentrated flavor and more tenderness. A dry-aged steak tastes deeper, richer, almost nutty. Most chains don't have the patience. Capitol Grill does it in-house because they believe you can taste the difference. They're right, and it's not just us saying it. When Mashed ranked the 11 best chain restaurant ribeye steaks in America, based on customer reviews, Capitol Grill took the #1 spot. Tasting Table ranked them the best steakhouse chain in the country. They've been named to Technomic's America's Favorite Chains Top 10, alongside brands with 10 times as many locations. With nearly 75 locations, they're replicating fine dining excellence at a scale that shouldn't be possible. But the reviews say the same thing city after city. Consistent, exceptional, worth every penny. They also source some of the best beef in America, including domestic Wagyu from Snake River Farms in Idaho. The marbling is extraordinary. Rich, buttery, melt in your mouth. When you think about it, a chain that dry ages in-house, hand cuts every steak, and sources Wagyu from Idaho. And then you think about the chains in the first half where inspectors found roaches in the sauce. It's hard to believe they're in the same industry. When you go dry-aged New York strip or bone and ribeye, these showcase the aging program. If Snake River Farms Wagyu is available, try it once. You won't forget it. Capitol Grill is an investment. You're paying for craft. And in this industry, that's getting rarer by the year. Best number 5, Fogo de Ch&atilde, a carnivore's wonderland. Steakhouses aren't only an American tradition. In Brazil, they've been doing something different for over a century. It's called rodizio, an all-you-can-eat feast where gauchos circle the room with skewers of fire-roasted meat, slicing it directly onto your plate. Fogo de Ch&atilde brought that tradition to America in 1997. Here's how it works. You sit down, you get a card. One side is green, one side is red. Green means bring me meat. Red means I surrender. As long as that card shows green, gaucho chefs circle your table with skewer after skewer. Ribeye, filet, leg of lamb, bacon-wrapped pork, on and on until you flip to red. Now, you might think all you can eat means low quality. After what I just told you about Golden Corral, I wouldn't blame you. But Fogo is the anti-Golden Corral. They obsess over sourcing. They partner only with ranches that meet rigorous welfare and sustainability standards. The gauchos are trained meticulously. They treat meat with reverence, not like a buffet item that's been sitting under a heat lamp since breakfast. And the industry has noticed. Fogo was named to Technomic's America's Favorite Chains Top 10 and ranked the #1 full-service brand among Gen Z consumers. Across 66 U.S. locations, their average customer rating is 4.5 stars. They opened 10 new locations in 2024 alone and have another 10 to 12 planned. In an era when chains are closing left and right, Fogo can't open fast enough. I took my dad to Fogo for his 70th birthday. He's old school, grew up on meat and potatoes. Suspicious of anything fancy, 2 hours later he was loosening his belt and saying, "That was the best meal I've had in 20 years. He's gone back 3 times since. The man doesn't go back to the same restaurant twice. He went back 3 times. When you go, pace yourself. The salad bar is excellent. It's also a trap. Don't fill up before the good stuff. Tell your gaucho your preferred doneness at the start. Picana, the top sirloin cap, is their signature. Get multiple slices. Try the lamb chops and the bacon-wrapped filet. Fogo is celebration dining. An event. a spectacle, but sometimes you want something quieter, elegant without the parade. That's where Fleming's comes in. My best number 6, Fleming's Prime Steakhouse and Wine Bar. Under the radar luxury. And here's a plot twist nobody sees coming. Here's a plot twist nobody expects. Fleming's Prime Steakhouse is owned by Bloomin' Brands. That's the same company that owns Outback. The same parent company that's closing Outback locations left and right. They're pouring money into Fleming's. New flagships, new markets, expanded service. In 2025, Bloomin' Brands opened a brand new 13,000 square foot Fleming's flagship in Tampa. Seats 350 guests, a glass wine vault holding over 2,500 bottles, 16-foot floor-to-ceiling windows, 5 private dining rooms, and they're planning to grow from 70 locations to 100. While Outback struggles to stay relevant, Fleming's is building monuments to fine dining. Bloomin' Brands CEO said publicly that every new Fleming's will carry this flagship design forward. That tells you everything about where quality lives in that company. Follow the money. It's not going to Outback. Most people haven't heard of Fleming's. No Super Bowl commercial, no catchy jingle. That's part of the appeal. Fleming's quietly serves some of the best steaks in America. USDA Prime from family-run Midwest farms. Cuts hand-selected for beautiful marbling. Finished at 1,600 degrees. And in 2024, they added a 5 Wagyu, the highest grade of Japanese beef on the planet, to 20 locations. That's a chain that's investing in excellence, not cutting corners. It doesn't have Ruth's Chris's name recognition, but ask anyone who's been, they'll tell you it belongs on any celebration shortlist. When you go prime bone and ribeye or tomahawk, maximum marbling, maximum impact. Don't skip the wine program. The and wine bar in the name isn't marketing. It's a promise. This is a splurge, not a Tuesday night. Fleming's is what happens when a company decides to do it right instead of cutting costs until there's nothing left worth eating. Outback could learn a thing or two from its own sibling. For our final pick, we go all the way back to 1926, to a New York institution that's been serving steak longer than most of us have been alive. Best number 7, The Palm. Old school top-tier steak. Almost 100 years ago, a restaurant opened in New York City. The walls were covered with caricatures, the tablecloths were white, and the steak? Simple, honest, perfect. Nearly a century later, The Palm is still standing. In a business where most restaurants fail within 5 years, The Palm has survived for almost 100. World wars, recessions, the Great Depression, the pandemic, food trends that came and went. The Palm kept doing one thing, serving excellent steak. No gimmicks, no sizzling 500-degree plates, no tableside theatrics, no foam or smoke, no robots trying to cook medium rare. Just USDA prime corn-fed beef, aged at least 35 days. Simple seasoning, kosher salt, and parsley butter. Cooks who've been doing this for decades. One reviewer fell in love precisely because every single dish was simply but perfectly prepared. That's confidence, that's craft. That's nearly 100 years of not needing a gimmick because the steak speaks for itself. When you go prime bone and ribeye or NY strip, let the aging and quality shine. Ask for medium rare. Their cooks know how to hit it. This is client entertaining and anniversary dinner territory. I started this video with a scary number. Hospitalizations doubled. Deaths doubled. But I want to end with a different kind of number. 7. 7 restaurants that still believe a steak should be an experience, not a gamble, not a coin flip, not a prayer. And 7 where you now know exactly what's happening. The cheap beef, the failed inspections, the corners cut where you can't see them. That's what this was really about. Not just a list. Information that protects you and your family the next time you sit down and open a menu. Every time you choose a restaurant that does it right and walk away from one that doesn't. You're voting with your wallet. You're telling the industry what matters. That's power. And now you have the information to use it. Now I want to hear from you. What's the best steak you've ever had at a chain restaurant? And what's the worst? Drop both in the comments. I read every single one. Subscribe to this channel. More investigations are coming. Click the video on your screen. It's the next step in taking control of where and what you eat. You've worked too hard and lived too long to settle for a bad steak. Demand better. You've earned it.